Hello, my name is Jennifer, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the 6 Tudor Queens book tag. So this is an original tag by Gemma from Gemma Books, Emily from Novelle Novels and Danny from Danny's Book World. I will link all 3 channels down below and I was kindly tagged by Gemma. So there are 6 main prompts, if you like, or sort of based on the wives of Henry VIII, and then there is a bonus prompt based on Henry VIII himself. So let's get stuck into it. Number 1, Katherine of Aragon, a book that was your first love. So I'm going to go for, of course, if I can get it out, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I love this book. I read this first as a child. I've reread it many times over the years and it's just such a lovely, comforting book. It's funny, it's touching. I love it. I love all of the Anne series actually, which is sitting here behind me, but there's actually 2 final books of the series that I haven't read because I didn't know they existed until a couple of years ago. So I am hoping to get to them soon. Question 2 is Amberlynn, a book with a manipulative character. So I'm going to go for the most manipulative of all fictional characters, the most unreliable and unlikable narrator, Humbert from Lolita by Vladimir Nabakov. So I read this a few years ago. I liked it. I think it's a very good book. And I think it is testament to just how manipulative that main character is by the fact that how the term Lolita was, probably not so much nowadays, but was used in society to describe a certain type of person. And actually that is, I think, testament to just how manipulative Humbert is. Question 3 is Jane Seymour, a book that delivered what you wanted. So I'm going to say Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters. I read that earlier this year. It's one of my favourite books of the year so far. And obviously it was long listed for last year's Women's Prize. I mean, it should have made that shortlist really. Having read it, I think it should have made that shortlist. And obviously a lot of people really, really loved that book. And I was slightly apprehensive going into it because of how much everyone loved it, and I just wasn't sure how it was going to fall, but I loved it. It delivered what I wanted and more. I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful book. Number 4, Anne of Cleves, a book that wasn't what you expected. So, a book that wasn't what you expected, I'm going to go with Piranesi by Susanna, Clarke. So I read Piranesi at the end of 2020, after it had just been published, and I didn't know anything about it at the point of picking it up. The reason I picked it up excuse me, was an author that I follow on social media had mentioned that she was going to be reading it, and she didn't mention anything really about it. She hadn't read it, so it wasn't that she was recommending it, she just mentioned it. I thought it looked interesting, looked it up. My library had a copy, so I got it out of the library. This copy I actually won in a competition subsequently. So I got it out of the library and it sat on my shelf for quite some time because after I got it out I was looking at it thinking, I am not going to like this book. This does not look like a book that I would like. I'm really not into like Greek myth retelling and that sort of thing. So it did sit around for a while. And then when I actually got to it, I loved it. I just became so immersed in the story. It wasn't what I expected because I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but I didn't think I was going to like it at all. And I loved it. And it was probably my favourite book that I read in 2020. And I'm hoping to reread it at some point this year as well. Next prompt, Katherine Howard, a book that irritated you. Okay, so this might be slightly controversial, but a book that definitely irritated me was Luster by Leilani. I read it not long after it was published. I think I might have read it just before it was longlisted for the Women's Prize last year. And it came out to a lot of hype. I heard a lot of people very much highly praising it. And I just didn't get it. Like, I read it all. It's only quite a short book, but I kept expecting for it to suddenly click and for me to see why everyone was loving it. And I didn't get it. I found it quite annoying, and yeah, I think I gave it like 1 star, which is quite unusual for me. So I really didn't like it. And then question 6 is Katherine Parr, a book published after the death of the author. So I'm going to say Maurice by Ian Forster. So I read Maurice in January this year, and I loved it. I thought it was really, really great. So it was originally written, I think, in 1913, 1914, and then there was some later revisions, but it wasn't published until after the author's death. So it was published in 1971. The reason being, I understand, because it is a book about gay characters, and it's quite a happy, you know, a fairly positive, hopeful story as well. So it wasn't published until after the author's death, which is a shame that had to be the case, really. But it's a wonderful book that I would highly recommend, and it's one that I will be revisiting in the future. And then the final prompt is Henry VIII, a chunky book you hated. I was going to mention Great Circle, but I've spoken about that quite a bit recently. I'm going to say Out by Natsuo Kirino. This is a Japanese crime novel that I read, I think, at the start of this year. I had been meaning to read it for a little while, and I had only heard positive things about it, and I really didn't like it. So it's quite a long book. I want to say maybe at least 400 pages, and I did finish it, which is a surprise to us all. So for most of the book, I was sort of like, yeah, you know, okay, whatever. By the end of the book, I actively disliked it. I thought it was trash. I don't know why people like it. Particularly, what I didn't like was the portrayal of sexual assault in the book. I just thought that was handled in a really problematic way, and I thought it was trash. So yeah. So those are all the prompts. I'm going to tag a couple of people. I'm going to tag Leo Bancroft, and I'm going to tag BookTube with Amy. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, ladies, to creating a wonderful tag. I hope you're all well, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.